Hey there friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I'm back with a new layout for the Paige Evans design team, and I'm going to be using Paige's Bungalow Lane collection for this, and I'm also going to be using one of her cut files. I'm going to be using one called Floral Butterfly, and I'm going to cut it on, well, I've already cut it, on paper number 16, which is this really pretty gradient pink with white lines on it. And I love this butterfly because it's half solid and then half floral, and I think it's just really pretty. I think I've used it once before for a different project a few years ago, but I had an idea flowing, so I wanted to go with it. I've got two black and white pictures here of me and my daughter, and I'm going to try to figure out how I want to start this layout. I wasn't sure if I wanted to center the butterfly perfectly straight or kind of tilt it like it's flying off the page. I do want the photos kind of on the right side of the page because the way my daughter is looking up toward the left, I want it to look like she's kind of looking across the page. And I thought that I would incorporate some of the large floral die cuts somewhere on the layout. So before I get cranking on that, I'm going to go ahead and get my background figured out. I thought about using pattern paper, but I just couldn't find one that was calling out to me for this particular page. So I just went with white, and this time I'm using textured white cardstock. I believe this one is Avalanche. It's the Basil brand. So it's got some texture to it, and I'm going to coat the whole thing with clear gesso, and I'm using the Art Basics Finnabair. This is my last tube of this. I've had several people mention that this gesso now comes in a jar, so I need to get my hands on some of that. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I want to jazz up the butterfly. I want to kind of fade out some of it, so I'm going to come in with some white gesso, and the white gesso that I have is from Liquitex, and I'm just going to use my little silicone brush there. I got that off Amazon. They're pretty easy to find, and I'm just going to kind of coat the left side here, and I'm not trying to cover up the pink. I just want to soften it up just to give it a little bit of interest and a little bit of shading and a gradient. So it's just going to make the pink a little bit more faded looking and a little bit more of a weathered effect. And then I'm going to come in a little bit on the solid side as well, just to kind of, like I said, add a little bit of white, a little bit of faded look. And then because I know that the photos are probably going to go somewhere around that area, and I like to create a little bit of a area behind the photo to make it stand out a little bit more, and I'll kind of explain that later as I go. I do this kind of thing a lot, and then sometimes it winds up not even mattering because you can kind of see there, you can't even really tell that I did it. Sometimes that happens. This is just me playing around. I think I'm going to center the butterfly and then layer the photos like you see them here, because I still wanted the effect of the butterfly. I didn't want to cover up all of that butterfly, but I knew that I was going to layer these two photos on top of it, so I'm just going to go with it. And then for my mixed media, I thought I would do blue because I knew that I was going to work with blue, yellow, and pink flowers. And I wanted to do something different instead of blue because I always tend to reach for blue on the background. I decided to go for gold. So I pulled out two of my favorite Shimmers paints. I have Minor 49er, which is my favorite Shimmers gold, and it's in Inklings. And then I have another one that is one of the original Shimmers mixtures, and it is called Christmas Cheer, and it is really pretty gold. It's very similar to Minor 49er. It's just the consistency of the actual paint is different. It's thicker and it's got more glittery bits in it, whereas the Inklings dries more shimmery and shiny. You'll be able to see here in a little bit once it's dry. But all I'm doing is coming in with my brush, adding some water, using my finger. I like to just tilt the page this way and that way. And you can totally do this with the packaging technique as well. I'm just trying to get some color on the background because it's going to show around and behind the butterfly. So this does not have to be perfect. This is a really good example of it doesn't matter how messy your background looks if you're going to put a big cut file on top of it, because only parts of it are going to be visible. And my goal here is to have the gold shine through that floral side of the butterfly and then around the edges and kind of above and below the butterfly. So you can see how it totally changes. You know, it looks like a big old hot mess, but then once you put everything back on top of it, it all makes sense, or it does to me anyway. So this gold is really pretty. It looks pretty light right now. I'm going to keep working on it. When it dries, it's so pretty. It's so shimmery, and you know, it's got that metallic finish to it, which gold always does. So yeah, I like mixing and matching different kinds of paint. These are, like I said, two different textures. One is pretty thin and watery, and the other one is a little bit thicker. The inklings come dry, and you have to add water to them to activate the paint. But the original shimmers and the pot that's on the above the top there, it already comes with liquid in it, and you just have to stir it up. But yeah, they're both beautiful, and they work really well together. They splatter really nicely. So this is kind of dry. I did take my heat tool to it, but you can see there how shimmery and pretty that is. I love that. And I like how it's looking with the butterfly on top of it, but I feel like it needs some more splatters. You know, I felt like I had added enough earlier, but like I said, when you put everything back on top of it, you know, some things are going to get covered up, and then sometimes you need to go back and add more. And so that's what I'm going to do here. If you want bigger splatter drops, I like to hold the brush up a little bit higher and then use my finger to kind of press and squeeze down on the bristles, and then you'll get a nice big splatter. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry again, come back in to the butterfly, and I want to add some more white to it. So I'm going to use my white gesso again and just my finger to kind of go around the edges and add a little bit of distressing and smudging around the edges here. I want this to look kind of distressed and not so perfect. And sometimes your fingers are the best tools. So I'm just going to use my hands to do that, and then use my edge distressor to distress the edges. And I've had this little edge distressor for years. I think I got it on scrapbook.com probably 10 years ago. I think it's Making Memories, but there's a ton of different ones up there. You can find those pretty easily. Or you can use the edge of your scissors. Works pretty good too. I'm going to use some white acrylic paint to add some white splatters onto the butterfly. And you can see how white that is because it's thick paint. And if you don't want your white splatters to be super white, just dab it up pretty quick, and then it will fade it out like that. So you get this nice faded look. And I like to use paint for my splatters because it is thicker. It's completely different from gesso. You know, gesso is not paint. Gesso is a primer. But sometimes gesso creates the look that I'm going for. So it just depends on what I'm doing. You know, gesso is thinner. You can scrape it and smudge it, and it's going to kind of give you that faded effect, whereas paint tends to dry pretty quickly. It doesn't really blend and smudge as easy, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to start to play around with all these flowers from the floral die cut pack from Bungalow Lane, and kind of start working on the placement of those and see how many I want to use. You know, I know that I want some on top of that floral side of the butterfly, but I don't want to cover it all up because the butterfly itself is beautiful, and I want the wings of the butterfly to be visible. I really like this Happiness and Sunshine die cut that I might use as the title. Once I had all that on there, I took a break and then came back and thought I need a little bit of blue on the background. I need more than one color. So I came in with another shimmers. This one is called Oaky Bear Blue, and it is an Inklings, and it matches the blue flowers in this collection perfectly. So I thought instead of doing a whole bunch of blue on the background like I did with the gold, I would just add some hints of blue and just do some splatters. So I'm just going to take my brush, do that, and then roll my paper towels over it. That's my favorite way to keep splatters looking like splatters. If you roll paper towels over it really softly, it won't smush the circular shape of your splatters. Because, you know, sometimes if you press a napkin down on top of splatters, it will just make it look like a blob. But rolling the paper towels over it, it keeps them looking like little dots. All right, so I'm going to work on layering the photos. I'm going to use some white tissue paper. I might layer something else later, but for now, I just want some kind of layer behind there. I like how this is very subtle, and it's very, you can rip and tear it, but it does give a little something extra to the photos. Helps them stand out just that much more. And I think I really like that happiness and sunshine. And that's the perfect place for my title because, if I look around at this layout, I don't really have a good spot for a big title, and I thought, where's this title going to go? And that was perfect because it kind of helps separate the photos, but then it also doesn't take up any space around the outer area of the butterfly. I am going to add some adhesive behind the butterfly, at least on the solid side, to pop it up because I love dimension, and I think it just kind of helps create that little shadow around the edges there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I know that the butterfly is going to stay right there, so I'm going to go ahead and get that glued down, and then I can start to build everything else. And I do want to make sure it's straight. If I want it crooked, I want it crooked. But if I want it straight, I'm going to measure it and make sure it's straight because it either needs to be completely obviously crooked or perfectly straight. Because if it's kind of crooked, but it wasn't meant to be crooked, that drives me crazy. So I love that T-square ruler. I've had that for years too, and I got that on Joann.com, and it was only a couple dollars. So it's one of my favorite tools. Popping up the photos with the same adhesive foam. Again, dimension, love dimension. I didn't do anything to the floral side of the butterfly because it's fine. I don't feel like I need to glue that down or add adhesive foam behind it because it's so intricate. And I'm going to add some foam behind the flowers that are over there anyway. So everything's going to work out as far as dimension goes. And I did assess the flowers that I was using, and I realized that, some of them, half of them are covered up. So I'm going to cut off the half that's covered up because I could use that other half somewhere else. That's a good way to make your embellishments stretch. If you're going to layer them and half of it is covered up, cut that half away and save it because you can't see it anyway. Nobody's going to know that you cut half of it off. Here's where I add adhesive foam behind a couple of those flowers over to the left. And then I'm just going to glue those down and get all these other florals glued down. And I do want the photos kind of crooked. Even though the butterfly's straight, I think the top photo is going to be at a little bit of an angle. And I like how she's looking toward the left, so it kind of, the flowers, it's kind of looks like she's looking across at the flowers. I always like to give my subjects in the photos something to look at, as if they're alive on the layout and they are staring at something. Who knows? I'm weird, I know. I glued down the title and then I changed my mind. I'm going to go with this piece instead. Same concept, different color, different sentiment. I changed it because one, I like the neutral color. Since I've got all that gold on the background, I liked the kind of the neutral color of This Is Our Happy Place. I'm going to save the sunshine one for a different layout. But I don't know, I kind of feel like this one suits the photos better because we were just on the couch, hanging out, happy place type of situation. And then it also kind of pulls that gold color from the background. So I went with this one instead. And it's the same placement, it's just a different piece. Now I'm looking for some smaller flowers. And I found the sticker sheet from the 8-page sticker book. And then this is the dimensional stickers. And did you know that you can dismantle those very easily? So I'm going to pull one of the top pieces off of one of those dimensional stickers and just use the top piece as a die cut. They come apart really easily, and another way to stretch your embellishments. And I'm going to try to work those underneath the photos there just to bring a little bit of something down there to that space. And I'm going to try some of these little sentiments from the 8-page sticker book too and see how those work. So I'm trying to create some kind of a little cluster down there, but not too much. I don't want to clog it all up because I do want a good amount of white space around the butterfly since everything is congested in the center of this layout. I want to make sure that there's plenty of room to breathe around the edges. I do want to add some thread, and I did not have the perfect blue color thread to match that dark blue. So what I do when I have a situation like that is I mix two colors together, and it winds up looking like the perfect color. You know, I mix and match my mixed media. Might as well try to mix and match threads. And when you glance at it at first, it looks like the perfect color. So I'm going to try to figure out where to put this. I'm going to wind up putting it over here on the right corner underneath the bottom photo there, just to give a little bit of texture and interest and a pop of that color. And this is what I've got so far. You can see the dimension there, just a slight popping off the page, how it just kind of brings everything to life. I love that. So I'm going to keep working. I'm going to add in a couple more things. I found these little foam stickers from the Foam Thickers, and it just says this here, and I liked it because it was that same color as the little title piece with some metallic gold on it. Yeah, at this point I'm looking for small things. All the big things are done. And as it was at this point where I decided I needed more gold on the background. So this is what I would call mixed media once it's too late, but we're going to make it work. So I'm going to very carefully with my brush come back in with the gold minor 49er and just kind of deliberately place it in a couple of spots just to make a little bit more, because I felt like a lot of it got covered up, which is to be expected, but I just wanted a little bit more gold to show. So, and it's hard to see because sometimes, you know, the gold is soft, and that's where the layering comes in. Definitely with shimmers, if you're using a light color, you know, let the first layer dry and then come back in with more. It's going to get darker, it's going to get more bold, and you're going to finally, you know, get the color that you want. Sometimes you may want it nice and soft, sometimes you want it bold, just depends. I'm going to come back in with that Oaky Bear Blue color for a little bit more splattering. I don't want to go overboard, but I felt like I couldn't really see a lot of the blue that I added in the beginning. So I'm going to add that in, come back in, lighten it up a little bit with the paper towels. Even though this is going to lighten it up quite a bit and make it more subtle, I feel like it still makes an impact, you know? So sometimes, even though it appears that what you're doing is very subtle and detailed and doesn't really matter in the end, to me, it's those details that make the difference at the end, when you're just, your eye is searching the page and you're like, oh wow, I didn't notice that the first time. I love that. All right, so we're coming back in with more gold. Now this is the little gold sheet from the 8-page sticker book, and as you can see, it's very metallic. A little trick I like to do to tone down the shine is to smudge a little bit of white gesso over it. So there's 3 little butterflies on there, and you saw what I just did. I just used my finger, smudged a little bit of white gesso, and it still makes them shiny. It just makes it less shiny, which I love. I'm also going to use some of the acrylic stamps from the Bungalow Lane collection, this little butterfly, and I pulled out a gold ink pad that I have and a little scrap piece of textured white cardstock, and I'm just going to stamp some of these butterflies on it, and I'm going to cut some of them out and make little die cuts out of them. So this is one way to use your stamps. You know, a lot of people are intimidated by stamping on a layout, especially if you just stamp directly onto the background, because, you know, once you stamp it, it's there. But this is a way to, quote, stamp on a layout, but technically you're not, because it's a stamp, but I cut it out and now I can move it around like a die cut. And if you saw that stamp set, there are multiple flowers. You could do this with flowers. You could do this with the leaves for a fall layout. Cut them out, stamp them in any color. You could watercolor them. Possibilities are endless. But I wanted these small butterflies so I could kind of scatter them around the page. I think I cut out 4. And then I'm going to use these 3 gold sticker butterflies and put those in a couple spots. And they are, you know, they're going to stay flat because they're just clear stickers. But you could also make those into die cuts. You could stick those to white cardstock, cut them out, and then you could bend up the wings and make them dimensional. So there's, you know, again, possibilities. You don't have to just stick a sticker as it is onto your page. You can make it into a die cut. You can make it dimensional. You know, lots of options. So just always look at everything that you have and try to think outside the box of how could I use this, you know. Just because it's a flat sticker does not mean it has to be flat, because you can see here what I did with these little stamps, and that took just a few minutes. I mean, super simple. I added some adhesive foam under there, and now the wings are bent up, and you have these cute little die cuts. But the other one, the stickers, I did stick them flat because, you know, everything else is so dimensional. Sometimes I like to have some flat things on there. Speaking of dimension, I pulled a couple of these brassy gold button stickers from the chipboard sticker sheet. Oh, there's Paige's head. But I want to tone down these shine again, so I'm going to smudge some white gesso over them and use those as centers of the two pink flowers. And I love how that looks. Again, I love dimension, and I love that chipboard instantly gives you dimension. And then I've already popped these up with some foam, so, you know, pop it up, pop it up. Coming back in with more of the blue thread. I wanted to add it a little bit over to the left side, wasn't sure where. So I wind up kind of sticking it underneath this pink flower. I probably didn't even need to do this, but I did. I kind of had to work with it because that flower was already glued down. I just kind of wedged it under there and add some glue. And I like that little pop of color and the pop of texture that creates. It's one of my main loves about thread, is just the texture and the detail that it adds. Surprise, we're coming back in with the shimmers. Oh my goodness. Sometimes I watch myself when I'm doing these voiceovers and I think, are you ever done with the splatters? The answer is no, obviously. That's what we're doing here. We're splattering some more gold. Sometimes I ask myself, why do I make such complicated layouts? I don't know. I get carried away and it just happens, and then, you know, it's been 3 days and I'm still working on the same layout. Oh, I'll never learn. So it was at this point where I decided, hey, I think I should layer something under the flowers. Yeah, you're almost finished and everything is glued down. Bad idea. So how do I do that? Okay, I cut a little piece of the blue paper number 4, and I just basically cut it into an L shape so I could wedge it underneath the left side of the photo there. And it looks like I have a layer underneath the photo. So if you ever get into this situation where everything's glued down and then you say, hey, I should have added a layer, kind of cut an L shape or just a little strip and wedge it underneath the edge there. And no one's gonna know except all the people watching your video. But these are just, you know, tips and tricks on how to cheat because you didn't really do it the right way. But what is the right way? Okay, I'm getting philosophical. Just do whatever you feel like you need to do. And if all else fails, just pull it up and re-glue it down, right? Yeah. I just was showing you there that I added a couple more tiny flowers from that 8-page sticker book sheet. And then some of these little puffy button stickers that I'm going to use for the middle of some of these flowers. Cute little sticker sheet there with some puffy hearts and stars and buttons and things. And then, you know, I got to looking at this layout and I thought, there's just too much white around the edges. I need to do something around the edges, but I didn't want to do something too drastic. So here's what I did. I went back to the shimmers, except this time I pulled out a different color called Ride the Tide. It's kind of that lighter blue color that's in that big flower on the right. And I thought I would just do a little bit of light sporadic watercolor around the edges, and I do a couple of layers of this because it's really light. I just wanted it to look kind of like this pretty light blue cloudy wash around the edges, and I think it turns out pretty cool. It just kind of brings in the blue a little bit more without being a busy pattern or too distracting. So yeah, I let that dry and I come back and I wind up doing another coat of that. And you'll see here in the final pictures how it looks. I love how that turned out. The last thing I'm going to do is add in my lines and my journaling. And this is with my gold metallic pen that I'm going to write down there at the bottom. And then I think that's going to wrap it up. Yep, that's the final layout. I love the blue around the edges. I'm glad I did that because it was just so white. And sometimes too much white drives me crazy. But I love how this turned out. I think the colors are beautiful. And I love how the background, you know, just kind of shows through. And it's something different than blue because I tend to always go for blue. So I'm glad that I went with the gold. I just think the tones of these pinks and yellows and blues are really, really pretty. And Yeah, I took a lot of close-ups here. You can see all the dimension, the threads, the buttons, the flowers, all the things. I'm going to link the Bungalow Lane collection and the shimmers and everything down below. So if you want to get your hands on any of these goodies, you can. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be sure to answer you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you in my next video.